All right, I think we're live, and hopefully we don't have too many technical issues. This is the first live stream that I'm doing. I'm solo, no Mindy, no Lindsay, but that's okay. I think I'll get by. They do add a lot to the conversation. Well, they make it a conversation instead of a monologue. So I'm going to keep it brief. But this is the first time I'm going live from this cool new truck camper I got. So I've been on the road for about a week at this point, a couple days away from being home. I am sitting on a side street in a suburb of Chicago. I just hung out with a really inspirational guy. If we're connected on LinkedIn, you might know him as well. His name is Chris Rivera. If you don't know Chris Rivera, check him out. Right, he's a coach, and he's got so much wisdom to impart. He is a survivor of some health issues. He's learned a lot about himself, and he's helping to impart some wisdom on others. I just spent 45 minutes with Chris, and the time was extremely well served. So here I am sitting on a side street in Chicago, suburbia Chicago. I'll talk loud because it's a little bit noisy. I'm on StreamYard. StreamYard is a streaming service that allows us to stream to different Facebook pages, LinkedIn page. You can hear trucks going on in the background. My apologies for that. If I'll talk loud. If it's too distracting, let me know. I can close up some of this camper, but then of course I close up some of the light that's coming in here too. So today I want to talk about introductions versus referrals. Now, it's not that I'm against referrals. I love referrals, right? I am against asking for referrals specifically. Now, I know that a lot of you, especially in the financial services industry, you've been coached to ask for referrals your entire career. I'm going to tell you, the statistics tell you that that's a mistake. Did you know that 83% of affluent investors, and that benchmark for affluent investors is $1 million or more investable assets? So that's the survey, that's the group that's been surveyed. 83% of affluent investors don't like it when their advisors ask them for a referral. So if you've been coached to ask for referrals, and some of you do it really well, right? So if it's rocking for you, I had called my buddy Steven earlier today. He said like 10 to 20 COI referrals in the last month. He's killing it. I would never stop that, right? Most people have a really difficult time asking for referrals. It's a pretty awkward conversation, right? Well, I'll tell you what, the stats indicate that you're not very good at it. 83% of affluent investors do not like being asked for referrals. Now, the beauty is there's a flip side to that coin, right? 65% of these same people met their current advisor through a personal or a professional introduction. Now, those stats come from the Oxley Institute. Oxley got a great institute. I used to coach for them. Anyway, so 83% of affluent investors don't like when you ask them for a referral, but they are willing to give introductions across the board. So stop asking for referrals, start asking for introductions. Now, when you're going to ask for introductions, the first thing you have to do is decide who you want to be introduced by, right? Here's what I mean by that. Typically, when I'm working with an advisor in a coaching capacity, we identify the top 25, I'll call them advocates, right? There's reasons for that number 25. I'm not going to get too deep into that right now because that's a whole different topic. But we identify top 25 advocates. Now, I love when these are client advocates because they have experience of working with you, but it's okay if they're COI advocates. Heck, it's okay if they're social advocates and they're not even working with you at this point. But identify the types of people that you want to work with. When you identify those top 25 advocates, you're choosing, these are people I like to work with. Now, of course, their asset level matters. It's absolutely one of the criteria, but I wouldn't say it's one of the top criteria. What I would say is asset level matters, but if you want to be a happy, healthy person, work with people you like. So certainly your relationship with them matters as well. Make sure that you've got some, your advocate list is full of people that you like working with. Now, your next task in the process of asking for good introductions is you've got to be able to source names, right? You got to know who they know socially and professionally. So ask questions like, what'd you do last weekend? And if there's the opportunity, who'd you do that with? What are you doing this weekend? Did you travel this summer? Where'd you go? Who'd you do that with? Oh, you played golf? Cool. Where do you play? I know some people up there. Who do you play with? Right. So asking some of those who questions so you can gather some of that social intelligence is really important. Now I'm gonna share my screen here in a second, and we're gonna look at LinkedIn Sales Navigator. If you are not using LinkedIn Sales Navigator consistently, you are making a mistake. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is the single best prospecting database that exists to you. I know a lot of you have discovery data and Zoom info and things like that. That's all great that they give you, someone's name and their contact information. Sales Navigator does that and also gives you the ability to, the ability and the reasons to create relationships with people. So Sales Navigator takes it a step beyond just having the data. So let me share my screen real quick. Sales Navigator is a wonderful way, excuse me while I'm figuring out this StreamYard technology here. Sales Navigator is a wonderful way to source names, right? So now we're looking at my screen here in perpetuity. Let's make sure that if we've got any issue whatsoever, if you just hit me up with a little comment, if you got any issues seeing my screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up an advocate of mine who happens to be fairly well connected as well. So under lead filters on Sales Navigator, and this is a query tool that allows you to query all the users of LinkedIn. It's awesome. So if I go to lead filters, you can see all these filters on the left-hand side that allow you to query the users of LinkedIn. One of those is connections of. So as you're thinking about this list of advocates, the more active they are socially, certainly that helps with sourcing the right names to get introduced to. But so my advocate, for this demonstration, I'm going to use my friend Nancy Kiefer. If I could type. Nancy is awesome. So Nancy is the president of our local chamber. I've been friends with Nancy for quite a while. I was deeply involved in our chamber for some time. Nancy's incredibly well connected. So when I type in connections of Nancy Kiefer, Nancy is my advocate, right? And then you can see 997 results. Nancy's connected to 997 people on LinkedIn. Well, if I'm an advisor or anybody else, frankly, in the Daytona Beach area, that's where we might know Nancy from. So the next thing I want to do is go to the geography tab and type in Daytona Beach. Daytona Beach, Florida. Probably could have gone Volusia County also, because Nancy, Nancy knows people all over the place. So we could have done anything we wanted here. But you can see that Nancy's connected to 144 people in Daytona Beach or in that area, right? The next thing I want to do is sort by second degree connections. Now, everybody that Nancy and I are connected to mutually would be my first degree connection. You can see that denoted here next to their name. If I go to second degree connections, let it think for a while, you can see there's 105 people in Daytona Beach that are connected to my friend and advocate, Nancy Kiefer. Right now, I probably don't want to meet all those people, but let's say I work specifically with medical professionals or people related to perhaps that industry. So let me find industry here, and I'm just going to type in. Pardon the truck noises again. I'm on a street. I'm on a side street in a suburb, Chicago. So I'm doing my best to find a quiet enough area that has some light. And so I'm talking as loud as I can here. But if I go to, let's say, medical or hospital. Now you can tell I didn't do this ahead of time, right? So we got 5 results that Nancy's connected to that I am not connected to. Now, as we look through here, we got a senior VP and general counsel, great person to know, a president of a company, human relations, so, and getting back here to StreamYard, wherever we are. So as we look at those searches, bear with me 1 second, if you will. We're going to sacrifice a little bit of light so we can block out some of that noise. It was getting obnoxious. So as we look at that search on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can see that there's 5 people here that fit my search criteria that are connected again to my advocate, Nancy Kiefer, right? So I'm going to choose, somebody. How about Kelly Parsons? So I do know Kelly a little bit through the chamber, though not well. But one of the reasons that I chose Kelly is that I've actually got 69 shared connections with Kelly. So it's kind of, it's kind of crazy that she and I are not already connected. But when I find somebody who, and we'll stop my screen share here. When I find somebody that my advocate Nancy is connected to that I want to know, I'm going to simply ask Nancy for an introduction. But I'm going to do that in a way that makes it, more likelier that Nancy's going to give me that introduction. First off, I want to know how well she knows Kelly. Hey, Nancy, listen, how you doing, old buddy, old pal? How's the family? How's the dog? Right? Listen, Nancy, I was playing around on LinkedIn, just doing a couple searches, and I came across Kelly Parsons. I noticed she's a mutual connection of yours. Tell me a little bit about Kelly. Here's who I'm looking to meet professionally. Do you feel like she fits that criteria? And do you feel like you know her well enough that maybe you could make an introduction, right? I'm not trying to beat around the bush on this, but I want to make sure that Nancy and Kelly are well connected before I start asking for that introduction, because I can only come back to Nancy, maybe a couple times a year to ask for an introduction. She's a key advocate. I don't want to abuse that. When I need an introduction, I want to make sure I do it tactfully, because I can only do it maybe a couple times a year. Don't want to wear Nancy out on this stuff. Now, I will take an email introduction. I'm happy with an email introduction. I'm way happier if I say, listen, Nancy, I'd love that email introduction, but what do you say I buy you and Kelly lunch next week? Are you okay reaching out to Kelly and just to see if we can have lunch? And listen, I don't want to talk business, right? I'm not there to talk business. I'm there to meet somebody new. So if Kelly and I hit it off, I can handle a business conversation after that. Nancy, I don't want you to think I'm going to walk in there trying to sell anything to Kelly, right? I want to make sure that Nancy's not scared of that. Now, if she's your advocate, she probably knows that you have the tact to not make that happen. So I recommend, when I'm coaching advisors, I recommend they ask for 1 introduction a week at a minimum, right? We've got to have the ability to source names. So we're always looking for some kind of intimacy indicators, right? Is Kelly commenting on Nancy's content or vice versa? Do they belong to groups together? I happen to know that the 2 of them know each other well through the chamber in Daytona. But just as an example, I want to do a little bit more research on Kelly Parsons to make sure she's, number 1, a good introduction for me. Number 2, it looks like she and Nancy are connected deeper than just having a connection on LinkedIn. The other thing that you can do is go check out Nancy's Facebook profile, right? And if she's connected to Kelly on Facebook and LinkedIn, that's a pretty good indicator that there's a little bit more intimacy to the relationship. So here's what we recommend, right? When you ask for an introduction, or when you ask for a referral, rather, keep in mind that the majority of people are not comfortable with that conversation. And the majority of advisors I've worked with over the years, not very good at that conversation, right? That's, and if you've done it before, because your coach told you had to, there's an awkwardness to that. It's hard to ask those questions, right? However, and that's logical that it's hard to ask that, because you're asking that person to do your work for you, right? However, if you do a little bit of homework, first off, identify who your advocates are. That's the first step in the process. Second, source names. If you can do that through conversation, that's super powerful. Absent of doing that through conversation, LinkedIn and Facebook are good places to understand who they're connected to and who they spend time with, and for you to do a little bit of research to find out if that's a good introduction for you. And then once a week, reach out to one of those advocates, right? So you're going to reach out to an advocate basically every 6 months or so, right? Because you got 25 advocates. Once a week, reach out to an advocate, ask them about that person you want to get introduced to, and then ask for the introduction. If all they're willing to do is email, that's great. I don't, that's wonderful. Obviously, a personal introduction is better, but if all you can get is an email introduction, that starts a conversation right there. If you do this once a week, you're going to ask for approximately 50 introductions a year. My bet is you're going to get introduced to 25% of the people you asked to be introduced to. So that's about once a month, you're going to get introduced to a new key person. Now, all the prospecting on LinkedIn and meeting the professionals in your area, that's great. Leveraging the relationships that you have built over the years through your book of business is even better, right? I built trust with Nancy. When Nancy introduces me to Kelly, that trust transfers. So anyway, a brief 15 minutes. We're testing technology. We're traveling around the country in our truck camper. It's awesome. I do miss my family. We'll see them in a couple of days here. And anyway, I want to reiterate what a great meeting and opportunity to meet a LinkedIn connection that I have in Chris Rivera. He's such a good guy. If you don't know Chris Rivera, look him up. He's got great wisdom. He's been through some health struggles of his own that have kind of carved out who he is today. He's amazing. Golfing tomorrow in Nashville with Blaine Weiss. You better bring your A game, Blaine. I'm ready for you, man. I hope this conversation about asking for introductions rather than asking for referrals has been helpful. And if you want to dive into deeper details about this discussion or other tips that I have, send me a direct message on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn often, even during traveling. When I settle down tonight, I will certainly be on LinkedIn a little bit later on too. So if you want to talk a little deeper, talk about some specific situations, I'm a resource to all of you. Send me a direct message on LinkedIn and I'd be happy to schedule a little time together. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you found it informative. Later on.